Good morning. Welcome to your program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, thanking you for joining us today here on the program via Cignal TV, One News, channels 8 and 250, and of course via YouTube and Facebook. Maraming salamat po to all of you who are Cignal TV subscribers. And of course, also those who are subscribers to PLDT Home Fiber Optic Internet, because that is what keeps us connected. And for today, we are out here in Lipa City, as you can see with our background. Today is July 19, 2023. It's a Wednesday, midweek, and I do hope you have accomplished much at this time of the week. And do join us because we are going to talk about the motoring experience of many Filipinos living in Metro Manila and perhaps all over the country. What is our situation as far as roads are concerned, as far as vehicles, mobility are concerned? So we have two guests who will join us later. So do stick around. But before anything, let's go to our daily starter and let's start our day with some good thoughts and ideas. And our daily starter is something that comes up on social media, and it goes, always race back to your real life. Ulitin ko, always race back to your real life. In case you're wondering, what is Cito trying to say, or what is this daily starter all about? Well, a lot of us have jobs, we have titles, we have positions, we have offices. Many people have responsibilities or roles in society, and sometimes it becomes our second life, and for some it becomes their life. Kumbaga, there are actors, actresses who end up starting behaving like that is what they're all about. Hindi yung they're performers in life. There are people who are CEOs, or there are managers, etc., and politicians for that matter. And then what happens is they get carried away. This is what it's all about. It's about being carried away by your work and forgetting who you really are. Some people end up having a problem adjusting or going back to the real life. Good example are politicians or rich people who suddenly become poor, or politicians who get so used to their power, to their luxury, or to their privileges that when they're no longer in politics, they get so displaced, they get depressed, etc. I am reminded of what someone once told me. They were so used to power, the grand life, they had everything. And when the economy went bad, they lost everything and they couldn't adjust. They had such a hard time adjusting that it ruined their family, it ruined their individual lives. And so it is always important that no matter what your success in life is, no matter what your title, position is, you always are able to go back to your real life. Who you really are, whether you have a simple life at home, that you have no problem going back and adjusting to the real you. Kasi mahirap dyan yung nagpapanggap kayo, or you get used to high living, that when it all disappears or when you have to put it away in the box, you're left wondering, ano na? Okay, so always race back to your real life. Always go back to your family, your wife, your children, your parents, and appreciate them for what they really are. And don't get deluded, misguided, or fooled by the artificial or professional life that you have. Okay, let's go now to the front page of the Philippine Star today, July 19, 2023. And the headline goes, ICC's probe on Philippine drug war to proceed. Philippine government appeal rejected by international court. The investigation into thousands of killings and human rights abuses allegedly committed during former President Rodrigo Duterte's war on drugs will proceed after appeals judges at the International Criminal Court, or ICC, rejected yesterday an attempt by the Philippines to stop the probe. It is rejected by the appeals chamber. The impugned decision is therefore confirmed. Presiding Judge Mark Perrin de Brickenbauer announced during an open court session in The Hague, the Netherlands. Okay, so yan po, no? Na-reject ang appeal ng Philippine government regarding the probe on the Philippine drug war. So, at the top of the front page, at the header, BBM signs Maharlika Investment Fund Bill into law, and in the photo, you can see the legislators who authored, promoted, and pushed for the Maharlika bill in both Congress and the Senate, alongside economic managers and, of course, the presidential team. So there you go. The Maharlika bill is officially a law of the land. In reaction to this, lawmakers, to bring Maharlika Investment Fund law to the Supreme Court. The National Union of People's Lawyers, or NUPL, and lawmakers belonging to the Makabayan Bloc are preparing a case to declare the Maharlika Investment Fund, or MIF, unconstitutional before the Supreme Court. Lawyer Cristina Conti, NUPL's Metro Manila Secretary General, said they are studying options to stop the implementation of the MIF. Abangan ang susunod na kabanata because clearly this is going to go to court. The center photo of the Philippine Star, we have President Bongbong Marcos assisting a beneficiary of the Walang Gutom 20. Excuse me. Sinisipon ang kuyang. President Marcos assists the beneficiary of Walang Gutom 2027 food stamp program during its pilot test launch in Tondo, Manila yesterday. Joining him are Vice President Sara Duterte and Social Welfare Secretary Rex Gatchalian. According to the President, in the story below that photo, the food stamp program, or FSP, will not encourage dependence on government aid but is meant to improve the nutritional intake of poor Filipinos. President Marcos said yesterday. Yan po. So, ayan, meron na naman tayong food program, nutrition program, because clearly, a big part of the Philippine population is having problems with food. New LPA to develop into tropical depression, Egay. Okay, the low pressure area in Mindanao might develop into tropical depression, Egay, in the next 24 to 48 hours. Egay will be, or would be, the fifth cyclone to hit the Philippines this year. So mag-ingat po tayo, our friends in Mindanao, and of course still all over the Philippines, up to the north, because alam naman nyo, ang mga bagyo na mahilig mamasyal sa Pilipinas. Okay, now, speaking of logos, the logo-loco situation, another new logo. The Tesla takes different approach after the logo fiasco of the DOT and of the PAGCOR. We now have the Tesla launching its own campaign. The Philippine government is not yet done with its rebranding schemes as the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority announced on Monday a logo design contest. Sila naman nagpa-contest na. Okay, so yan naman, different style, logo pa rin. Okay. Now, last but not the least, we have a photo of President Rodrigo Duterte with the head of the of China, Chinese President Xi Jinping during a visit of President Rodrigo Duterte, former President Duterte, in Beijing last Monday. Former President Rodrigo Duterte and China's President Xi Jinping met on Monday as old friends in Beijing, where the Chinese leader asked the former Philippine chief executive to continue promoting friendly cooperation between the two nations. There you go. So that's all the news we have on the front page of the Philippine Star. And so we now go to our topic for today. And the topic is all about commuting in Metro Manila, traffic, etc. And of course, we will probably be touching on the supposed strike next week. July 24 daw, meron daw strike ang mga public transport. So we go to our guest. Let's do the intro. Gab, please go ahead.
A lot of commuters in Metro Manila were stuck in massive traffic jams last week due to heavy rains and floods brought by the inclement weather. Some of them took their frustration on social media. Not even Muntinlupa Mayor Rufy Biazon escaped the Carmageddon during the heavy rain caused by the southwest monsoon, or habagat. Paying extra money to pass through the Skyway did not help, as the heavy traffic eventually reached the flyovers. In efforts to help commuters, the Transportation Department launched its central hotline for concerns and complaints on transport issues. Some public transport groups, meanwhile, believes that the government needs to adopt more people-oriented policies to address the transport issues in the country. Let's discuss the matter on today's agenda.
Ariel Cruz is director of AltMobility PH, a group of transport professionals and volunteers advocating for sustainable and inclusive mobility in the country. Cruz finished the fellowship in innovation through design thinking at the Asian Institute of Management. He also obtained his master's degree in city and urban, community, and regional planning from University of the Philippines, Diliman.
Good morning, Ira. Welcome back to the program. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, Cito. Well, it's good to be back. We could definitely all be better.
Yes, I can say the same thing for myself. I seem to be suffering from a unscheduled cold. Hindi ko nga alam kung saan ko nakuha ito.
Might be being outdoors, no?
Well, actually, I just arrived here. So anyway, welcome to the program. And I'm wondering, are you one of the many victims that got trapped in the rains last week?
Absolutely. Well, not for the reasons that you might think, but because I bike. I bike commute as my preferred mode of transportation. So I got stuck, obviously, because I can't bike in the rain. But that really shows again the limitation in our transportation options. No, there has to be a way for everybody to continue their transportation or their mobility despite the weather. So there could have been a better. There could have been a better rainy night for me and a better rainy night for all of the other ordinary Filipino commuters.
Okay, how would you assess the state of affairs for alternative mobility in the country? Because I used to bike. I used to bike a lot when I was much younger. But, you know, when I tried to do a return of the comeback, I nearly broke my neck when I was, going down Shaw Boulevard, and a lady in a taxi just opened the door to get out, and I slammed into the door. So parang sabi ko, you're here trying to be safe on your bike, and even without trying, you get whacked. So parang what is the state of affair for alternative mobility?
It's nowhere. We can't even talk about the state of something that does not exist. No, I mean, and precisely to your point, that is in fact a problem of infrastructure. That's what we call dooring. That happens to a lot of bikers, and that actually could have been deadly. So you're very lucky that you survived that, and that is a reflection of the type of infrastructure that we have. If the government is able to roll out the correct infrastructure and the correct policies, things like that shouldn't be happening to you. It shouldn't be that difficult for people to consider other modes of transportation. But here you are, you're saying you were trying to do a return of the comeback, and that precisely shows how difficult it is for people to consider other modes of transportation. Because for several years, the government, or several decades in fact, the government has only focused on one mode of transportation, and that is transportation via private vehicles.
Yeah, it's interesting because without even thinking about it, I remember just last week we had to do groceries, and I told my wife and my daughter, let's not bring the car because it's just such a hassle to drive less than a kilometer to the grocery and back, or 1 kilometer, let's say 1 kilometer going, 1 kilometer back. It's such a hassle because of the traffic, etc. So I said, let's just walk there and let's just bring the trolley. And when we come back, we'll just pull it. Unfortunately, we ended up buying more than I'd envisioned. Kasi mahirap. Dalawang chicks yung kasama mo. Mother and daughter went on a shopping spree at the grocery. So we ended up buying more than we did.
Right,
but we took
right.
tricycles.
Right,
And
right.
that, I think, was, I told them, hey, it wasn't so bad. Because even if you have so much shopping, you can take the tricycle. Now, what alternatives do Filipinos have? Because as you recall or might have known, the other night or a few nights ago, there was that flooding on Slex. Turns out it wasn't their fault. It was somebody else's fault. And then the Slex people got hell for it until it became evident na, teka, wala pong sisiyan, hindi po kami may kasalanan. Well, what are your thoughts on alternative mobility? Saan tayo pupunta?
Well, first of all, I think I spend as much on grocery as any gender. I think I find myself bringing up more than I need, no. But your statement precisely shows that there isn't a lead agency that we can all look to. No, you're saying there was a problem with SLEX, and now people are pointing fingers at each other. This clearly shows that there isn't one agency that is appearing to be in charge of everything. No, obviously we understand and we all know that the chief mandate to make all of these things available and fix all of these things is the Department of Transportation. But even if you look at the Department of Transportation, it needs to work hand in hand with a lot of other government agencies like DPWH, MMDA, DILG, and it doesn't seem to have enough of an authority to really be able to take the cudgels and act on all of these needs. No, you know, active transportation, which includes walking, biking to anywhere, no, is such an underappreciated form of transportation. Too much focus have been put over the decades, as I've said, over private cars. And yet now we're seeing that that's been a huge mistake. We need to develop active transportation options so that what you just described to us would be possible to a lot of people. In several years ago, we asked the TNVS provider to tell us what the average distance is traveled, no, by people booking TNVS, and they said on the average it's about 5 kilometers. That is a very short distance. That's something that we can actually walk. That's something that we can actually cycle to. But not a lot of people are opting for that because there is no infrastructure for it. Last year, in the president's first State of the Nation address, we were expecting for him to give more focus on mobility, having inherited a problematic transportation sector. And yet the president only mentioned two things: airports and rails. And what we are asking for the government this year, for the president in his second State of the Nation address, is to mandate and to direct the executive department to really pull all the stops to be able to create a transportation system. So, when you were talking earlier about the state of biking, I can't help but really slam that there isn't enough. Not enough has been done over the past 6 years of the Duterte administration, not even in the past year of the Marcos Jr. administration. Because what we need to be able to do, what the government needs to be able to do, is to actually come up with something that we can rightfully call a transportation system. One where the government isn't just focusing efforts on one mode of transportation. Because as we see now, it's all uncoordinated. These agencies are operating separately, and there doesn't seem to be a singular maestro that's conducting the orchestra, so that all of these pieces of all of these modes of transportation will work together.
Okay, when you were talking about that, what exactly needs to be given priority? Because if the president were to ask me, Cito, ikaw, anong idea mo? The first thing I would probably go is bakbakan mo nga yung DPWH, because for the longest time, and I have to point this out, for the longest time, the DPWH has successfully hid itself from scrutiny, from the media, from, parang they just keep silent, they stay out of focus, and everybody points at DOTR, everybody points at MMDA, but clearly our problem is our infrastructure. We can talk about mobility, alternative mobility, etc., but if the infrastructure sucks, then nothing. And so why has the DPWH been allowed to get away with this underperformance?
Chito, we have the same question. You're not the only one that DPWH is ghosting. In fact, there's a joint administrative order forming an interagency technical working group on active transportation that was signed during the Duterte administration, and it continues to operate to this day. AltMobility PH, together with Mubas One Coalition, we are the CSO representatives to this TWG, and pati kami, they don't show up to the TWG meetings. From what I understand, they don't even confirm. They don't even cancel. We even scheduled a special meeting to be able to adjust to the availability of DPWH, and yet they did not attend the TWG meeting. So this is the same question that we ask of DPWH, but you're right, they're as much responsible they're as responsible for what we are all going through today. Even decades of engineering did not prepare our cities. No, so if I were to be asked by the president, Chito, or if I would at least coach you in what you can tell the president, one is to really give a directive to his government to create a transportation system, to once and for all create a transportation system that works, and that's giving instructions to DOTR, DILG, DPWH, MMDA, and all of the other local government units, but also to Congress to fund it. We heard that most of the funding, I mean, not only we heard, we know that a lot of the funding goes to rail, and yet 96% of people, or at least more than 86 to 96% of people, rely on road-based transportation. That's biking, walking, and public utility vehicles. So that's another thing that we would like to talk about. Where is the funding for PUVMP? This was talked about earlier this year, where transport strike actually got Congress to call a session, and yet here we are again in the midst of another transportation strike because nothing has been done since then.
Okay, from what you know, or from your what do your sources tell you regarding transportation in the Philippines? Because by coincidence, sheer coincidence, I just finished an article to be published tomorrow on local mobility, meaning, mobility by train. And
Okay.
the fact that, it's always been about because we had Mr. C here on the program, and he pointed out that most of the roads in the Philippines, or the infrastructure investments, has been for private car owners and commercial vehicles, but not for the majority of the public, the masses, who would benefit from trains, who would benefit from mass transit. Now, what's your take on that? Because, it's like it's always road, but not trains.
In fact, a lot of funds have been sent to the rail sector. No, I think at a certain point it even accounted for about 99% of DOTR budget. It's gone down since then, but still not enough. But the way we should see it is, number one, yes, trains are important. This is an investment that we should be investing in. But it takes years, Chito. It takes about 8 to 10 years for all of these rail projects to be completed. And even after completion, it cannot function by itself. It needs to operate again around a system of transportation that would feed into it. The way that we should imagine it, or the way that we'd like government to imagine it, is when you step out of the house, there has to be a mode of transportation available to you immediately. And obviously, that cannot be a train station right away. You'd be very lucky to do that. But obviously, there has to be a jeepney system, for instance, that you can get into that would feed you into a train station. And then from when you get off a train station, there has to be a jeepney option again, or a cycling option for you to get to your final destination. So yes, it's very important to spend in rail, but there are a lot of immediate needs that our ordinary commuters need to be able to receive today, and that could easily be done by creating a proper network of biking infrastructure, and really looking into what needs to be done for PUVMP. Because here we are again, we're in the midst of another transportation strike. And really, at the end of the day, what we are forgetting in the equation is the welfare of the commuters. When jeepneys stop flying the routes next week, it will be the commuters that will ultimately be at the losing end of this transportation strike. So what we see that will happen is that they will conduct a strike, Congress will do another hearing, and there's going to be a lull, and then we just repeat the process all over again.
Okay, so what do you suggest?
Oh well, for first of all, again, we would like to ask the government, the president, in the State of the Nation address, to give to give a very clear mandate to the Department of Transportation to once and for all create a transportation system, empower the Department of Transportation in such a way that it can give instructions to all of the other agencies that it needs to work with. For instance, while DOTR would like to implement, say, Class One type of bike lanes, DPWH is a separate policy that reigns over the design of roads. So there has to be enough power given to the Department of Transportation in order to be able to smoothen those edges. Which leads me to the second point is that there has to be coordination amongst all of these non-government agencies, national government and local government units, for it to be able to create a system that addresses the needs of everyone. And then number three, ask Congress to fund it. Give budget where it's really needed, and give budget to initiatives that affect the lives of 96% of Filipino commuters. You know, the PUV MP has been waiting, has been pending for what, maybe the last 6 years, and the problem is just really, it's really just the same problem all over again. No, the government giving a deadline, the sector unable to comply. But if you look at the details, the government also needs a lot of things, such as say the LPTRP, which to this date it fails to deliver. So a lot of very complicated issues that the government needs to have an earnest sit down.
You know, I don't want to sound like a troublemaker, but it seems that the commuters are always the one who end up getting the last piece of the pie, if they even actually get any. They're the last to get. You know, when jeepneys go on strike, the government reacts. When transport or logistics company go on strike or complain, they get some redress or attention. But consumers or commuters don't get any government attention, and the politicians just take them for granted. Isn't it about time that commuters essentially, I don't know, start picketing Congress, or start staging a war on politicians online? So I'm sorry, it just I'm just fed up with this BS that commuters are the last to be addressed. Because I travel by tricycle. I travel by tourist bus. We go on the road. We don't fly because we just can't afford it. It's too much. But you, me, and commuters like us don't get, and then we pay the taxes.
That's true, and you hit it in the nail. The problem is they are not one of us. A lot of the people that are that are decision makers, a lot of the people that make these decisions are not like you and me, Cito. They don't commute. They travel the city in air-conditioned vehicles. Their staff travel in shuttle services, so they don't experience firsthand what it's like to be living under this environment that they've created or that they've failed to address. Back in 2018, when we filed the Commuter Bill of Rights, there is a provision in the bill that requires government officials to commute at the very least 2 to 3 times a week. And in 99% of the filings, this provision has been stricken out.
Okay.
And what we've been told is because it's not realistic for them to have to commute to work. So they know it. And I think what's important right now, maybe the fourth thing that the president can mention, the State of the Nation address, is requiring everybody from the secretary down to the staff to commute, to remove all of these government vehicles, to remove incentives such as parking, fuel allowance, and shuttle services, so that they will understand what it means to commute like the rest of us. And maybe, Cito, that will create a sense of urgency for them.
Okay, well, I think you and I are going to be talking more often nowadays, starting today. And I think this may be the birth of a new movement to go after these fat cats and spoiled slobs who just drive in SUVs with bodyguards, etc., to get a taste of what we do every day. Thank you, Ira. God bless you, and I do hope to see you more on the program.
Welcome, and we hope to bike with you soon.
I do hope so.
All right, have a good day.
Okay, you too. Thank you very much. And we'll go for a quick break, and Agenda will return with our second guest.
Transport Group Manibela vowed to paralyze public transportation in Metro Manila and other provinces during its 3-day strike that starts on July 24. However, the government doesn't seem too worried about it. In fact, the LTFRB has downplayed the impact of the looming strike, saying that the group does not have the capability to paralyze public transportation. Adding to that are the recent announcements of other jeepney cooperatives, stating that they will not join the planned transport strike. All of this, of course, goes back to the PUV modernization program, which remains a hotly contested issue. For their part, the Transportation Department is reportedly studying the possibility of requiring public transportation to shift to electric vehicles. This due to its contribution to both government and non-government efforts to decarbonize the country's road network and improve air quality. Experts, meanwhile, have reiterated their push for government to invest in mass transport systems to lessen people's over-reliance on cars. Let's discuss these further on today's agenda.
Ariel Lim is the president of the National Public Transport Coalition. He also heads other transport sector groups such as the United Transport Alliance of the Philippines and the National Confederation of Tricycle Operators and Drivers Association of the Philippines.
Welcome back to the program, Ariel. Good morning to you.
Yes, good morning, Sir Cito. Good morning po sa lahat ng nanonood sa ating programa.
Okay, now nadinig mo na siguro yung usapan namin ni Ira regarding sa mga challenges ng commuters, and of course we did an intro of the nightmare that vehicle owners suffered last week during the heavy rains. What is the state of affairs? Ano ang assessment mo sa mga nangyayari, especially with the threat of the Manibela Group to paralyze transport? Is that something you support or you reject?
Actually, Sir Cito, I was supporting yung pinaglalaban nila, no? But para mag-strike, no, siguro para sa akin po, sa aming hanay, medyo hindi ako palo kasi ang nasasaktan dito yung pasahero din, no? Tama na may pinaglalaban kami, pero sa tingin ko, you cannot solve the problem with another problem, no? Ang masakit yan, taong bayan yung ating may pahihirapan na actually sila rin naman gustong mabago ang sistema, maging maganda yung transport system natin. So, I think hindi lang ito yung paraan para mabraso natin ang gobyerno para makinig o mapakinggan yung kanilang kahilingan. Marami naman tayong paraan, meron tayong pag-usap, pwede tayo pakinggan dyan, siguro pwede tayo pumunta sa judiciary, di ba? Para questionin yung ating mga reklamo sa korte, no? So, for me, hindi lang yon, no? Pero nakikisimpatya po kami dahil pare-pareho naman kami ng kahilingan sa ating gobyerno na pakinggan ng hinaing ng transport group, especially kasi may mga pamilya yan eh. No? Hindi lang naman ang pinaglalaban nila yung kanilang hanap buhay, kundi may pamilyang pinakakain bawat isang driver of operators.
Yeah, but Ariel, sa palagay mo ba, is it just, kasi yung sinabi mo, no, may mga pinapakain, may pamilya, meron silang mga hinaing. We all have our burdens, we all have our problems. I mean, homeowners have to follow zoning. Businesses have to follow guidelines of government. Parang lahat kami sumusunod sa pagbabago. And yet, as far as the jeepney sector is concerned, I'm sorry, I don't want to sound unsympathetic, no, dahil natuto ako magmaneho sa jeepney, ano. Pero parang ang sa akin parang sila na lang ang nahuhuli, sila na lang yung hold out na we need to modernize kasi ang nangyayari yung mga jeepney pinahaba lang ng pinapahaba. Ganun din naman ang kalabasan. Bakit ba hindi sila sumabay and why should they be exempted?
Sa akin po kasi ganito, no? Supposed to be talagang modernization dapat na. Pero the problem with the government is hindi nga nakahanda at walang mga packages na maayos para sa sistema na gusto ng gobyerno. Unang-una, kaya na sinasabi ko, wala pong support na masasabing kasiguraduhan kasi ngayon po nagsimula na tayo sa modernization program, there is a cooperative, there is a corporation, napakarami na naman pong sumunod. No?
Yes.
Ako po, pabor ako sa magkaroon ng tinatawag na modernization program. Pero ang hinahanap ng sektor ng transportasyon, especially kami sa public transport sector, yung sigurado, yung iisang daan, no, yung iisang patutunguhan, no, kasi ang gulo-gulo unang-una sinasabi nyo nga meron tayong PUBMP para sa Euro standard, no. Tapos ngayon may pumasok na tayong electric. Saan ba talaga punta natin, no? Kasi alam nyo, ang public transportation, pag kayo ay naging isang operator, hinuhulugan mo yan hindi lang naman yan sinasabi isang taon tapos ka na. Yung tricycle nga ngayon sa modernization program, 5 years to pay yun no? Hindi naman po isang taon, 2 taon, 3 taon. So, baka after ilang taon, iba na naman tayo. So that's why, what we ask is to be the Congress and the Senate na gumawa ng batas. No? Batasin ito ng malinaw para may protection din yung mga operators na papasok dito sa modernization program. Kasi ang problema po ngayon, maraming mga kooperatiba ang bagsak na walang suporta ang gobyerno. They surrender their franchises, no? Then, ang nangyari, hindi nila kinaya yung pagpapatakbo ng kanilang co-op, mga nalugi. So hindi ito nakikita, hindi ito inilalantad. Pero sa katotohanan, almost 30% pa ng nag-co-op na lang ang natitirang tumatakbo. Makikita ninyo yung mga sasakyan nakabalandra. As a leader, siyempre nakakausap namin yung iba't ibang operators and associations, no, yung mga nag-kooperatiba. Yun ang nirereklamo nila, paano na ngayon. So, may nagpaplano na bili ng mga private entities, yung malalaking kumpanya ulit yung kanilang mga unit, itutuloy bayaran sa bangko, pero kanila na yung unit. Wala na roon sa mga operators. Yun po yung isang matagal na naming sinasabi. Kaya kung titignan ninyo, more than 6 years, 7 years na ngayon, na pinapatupad ito, pero hindi magkanda tuto. Paulit-ulit na lang, no? Paulit-ulit na lang yung reklamo. Because wala kaming nakita na malinaw na pulisya kasi walang batas. Kumbaga, ito'y ginawa lang na isa ng Department of Transportation through their own initiative. Pero walang katiyakan ng mga operators kung ano ba ang mangyayari. Halimbawa, nalugi ba ito? Hindi nila nakayanin ng pagpapatakbo. Dahil, alam nyo, ang kooperatiba po, parang ano yan parang...
pero Ariel, matanong ko lang, Ariel, bakit? Wala ba kayong representation in Congress? Diba marami naman kayong mga kaibigan na congressman, meron kayong National Network of Operators. transport operators, lalo na mga tricycle. Aba, kada kanto sa Pilipinas may tricycle. You would imagine that you would have the strongest lobby group in the Philippines.
Yes, tama po kayo. Ang dami, no? Ang daming mga congressman, mga senador na nalalapitan namin. Pero pagdating doon, para bang they using you as mga tao na butante, no? Yung katotohanan na katulad ng sinasabi ni Sir Ira kanina, hindi naman kami sa PWG, mga technical working group, hindi naman kami sinasama, even though na dapat ay kasama kami. So, hindi kami na-i-invite sa mga ganon. So, ang isang problema natin sa gobyerno, they will call yung mga tao na lumalapit sa kanila, na napapabura nila, sila yung mga isinasama. Pero at the end of the day, hindi nakikipaglaban sa tamang proseso ng karapatan. No? Ang akin kasi rito, we are not against the government. The government is there to govern us. No? Ang problema, kailangan yung gobyerno rin sana, nandoon yung kanilang talagang eagerness na hindi lang pampolitika, kundi para maayos yung ating transport system.
So Ariel, wala tayong modernization law? Wala tayong batas to back up this. Kasi for the longest time, during the Duterte administration, they were talking about modernizing public transport, phase out jeepney, gawin ng modern, etc. Ang ibig mo sabihin, walang batas na pinagbabatayan.
Wala po, wala. Kaya nga po si Senator Cruz po, nag-file siya noong last 18 Congress ng Senate Bill 867 at pinapatigil muna sana ito para gawing batas, no? At nirefile niya po ito ngayong 19 Congress, I think, 19 Congress, pero hanggang ngayon hindi pa ho napag-uusapan yun dahil nga patuloy nung huling hearing, nakiusap ang Department of Transportation na aayusin nila hanggang December 31st ngayong taon na to, no? Kaya nga nag-strike yung transport nung last 3 months ago dahil dito. Pero ngayon, nagpaplano na naman sila because yun nga pag-iipag-usap parang hindi makatotohanan, no? Yun yung isang nirereklamo. Kaya naintindihan ko rin naman na yung ibang sektor na nag-aas dahil na sila ay mag-strike, no? Like Manibela, because hindi nila nakikita yung sinseridad ng pag-uusap. That's the problem. Ako, even now, ako po, very vocal ako. Very vocal ako magsalita. Pero hanggang ngayon, walang nagkikipag-usap sa akin. I try my best na nakausapin kami, makipag-usap. That's why, sabi ko nga sa inyo, the best thing to do, kung hindi talaga kami kakausapin, we are trying to tell them na we are willing to listen to you. Sana makinig din kayo sa amin, pagkasunduan natin, tignan natin kung alin yung pwedeng makatulong because kami, ang gusto lang naman namin sa anay namin, makasiguro na ang hanap buhay ng public transportation, hindi basta na lang mamatay dahil nga sabi ko may binubuhay. Pero up to this time po, dito sa pag-uusap natin, ni isa man lang, kaya nga ako nag-file na ng demanda di ba? Inuna ko na yung mga emission na yan, yung private motor vehicles. So, ako naman, naman ako na pagbigyan sila sa pakiusap na hanggang December 31st. Pero, after December 31st at magulo pa rin ito at hindi pa rin ready, siguro that's the time na pwede na kami pumunta sa...
What is the DOTR committing to accomplish by December 31?
Sabi nila, maaayos na nila yung program para sa modernization program. Pero sa akin, napakalabo because paano nila maaayos kung walang pondo ito? Wala pong pondo
May program sila, but the program has to either become executive order to have effect, or it has to be Republic Act, a law that is passed by both Congress, Senate, and signed by the President. And kung mangyari man yon, kailangan may IRR at kailangan may funding.
Yes, natural po. Kasi paano mo tutulungan yung mga 179,000 units, 87 units noon, napapalitan mo na lang ng ganoon kadali, no, na pauutangin mo, pagkukop mo, bibigyan mo ng kaunting suporta, pero katulad ngayon, hindi binigyan ng Congress nung nakaraang budget diyan, noong 2023. So, ngayon 2024, hindi natin alam kasi wala naman siyang batas. So, only the department yung nagpatupad nito. Through
Okay, so
business.
Ariel, I think you're being very nice, polite, and diplomatic. Tama ba yung hinala ko na yung modernization act na yan or program na yan because walang batas to back it up, because walang executive order. Am I correct? Walang executive order backing that up. Okay, if that is the case, is this plain and simple hostile takeover? Parang,
Yes,
kumbaga,
yes.
no, pakiulit nga.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Kasi po dito, walang proteksyon yung mga maliliit na operator eh. Pag sasama-samahin mo yung prangkisa, gagawin mo isang kooperatiba, iti-seminar mo sila ng 2 weeks, hindi ka nun magpatakbo ng isang negosyo. Yung malalaking negosyo nga bumabagsak, itong 2 weeks isi-seminar mo para maging ano sila, entrepreneur, hahawak sila ng business na ganito kalaki. So, walang pupuntahan kundi pabagsak eh. So, pag bumagsak, the question,
Good.
what is the support of the government?
So ang nangyari na is they were pushing the Department of Transportation back during the Duterte administration, was pushing for modernization with no law backing it, with no executive order backing it, and then they were forcing the jeepney operators, drivers groups to modernize their vehicles. And of course, sabi mo nga, pagdating sa dulo ng biyahe, lugi na sila. So, ang magte-take over, mga negosyante at kumpanya na may pera.
Yes. Yes, totoo po yan. And I will fight for that kasi nakikita ko na. Maraming mga bumili, nagkooperatiba na bumagsak, na yung kanilang binili, siyempre, bangko, land bank, at saka ADB ang nagbayad niyan. So bayad na yung company na binilhan nila ng units, di ba? Wala nang pakialam yun, bayad na yun eh. So ang problema niyan, yung nabayaran na sila, yung mga after sales na nasira ang aircon, bla 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 bla, etc. So hindi nila na nagawa agad, lugi na yung kooperatiba. At the end of the day, yung kooperatiba babagsak, no? Wala nang panghulog doon sa bangko, then the bank will get it, 'di ba? Sa mga kooperatiba. And papasok yung bumili mismo. Papasok yung nagbenta. Kaya nga magtataka ka, pagpipilian mo mga units, yun lang kanila. Halimbawa, kukuha ka iba-ibang units pero lahat yun is accredited by DOTR. Hindi pwede. Pag sinabi mong 15 units, puro hino yan, puro hino yan. 15 units, puro autokid yan. At the end of the day, pag bumagsak, wala namang pakialam na yung mga hino autokid, bayad na sila, bangko na ang problema. O, papasok na yung autokid, papasok na yung kung sino mga negosyante, ako binibigay ko lang yung names ng mga kumpanya na pwedeng bumili, bibili namin ngayon, pangalan na ng korporasyon nila. So wala na yung maliliit na mga operators, wala na yung maliliit na mga dating may-ari ng isa-isa o dalawa, tatlong pang-isa. That's my point. Kaya gusto ko ibatas ito noon pa. I'm calling the government, especially the Senate and the Congress, to act as to make a law to protect. Kasi ang tanong, pag bumagsak, anong kasunod? Tutulungan pa ba ng gobyerno yung kooperatiba na yon, even there is a cooperative law na para masustain nila ulit, mabayaran? Wala. So, yung mga...
Meron ba, Ariel, pasensya na Ariel, do you know of a specific case na yung kooperatiba na lugi, na take over ng bangko at binenta ng bangko to a private group?
Yes, meron po ngayon. Puro, ang ano po kasi ngayon, ang usapan ngayon, bangko between the bank at saka yung bumagsak na mga co-op. So, ang nag-uusap ngayon, ang bangko, halimbawa, land bank or ADB, at saka yung bangko na. Kasi wala nang paki yung co-op, lugi na eh. Diba? Surrender na eh. So, sila ngayon, yun po yung gusto naming ilabas sa Kongreso at Senado na to investigate. Kasi, labas na po, halimbawa, ako yung kooperatiba, labas na ako, pag sinurrender ko na, bagsak na kami, kinuha na ng bangko, wala na kaming karapatan pang maghabol doon eh. So, ang mangyayari, makipag-usap, bangko na at saka yung bibili na korporasyon, whoever corporation is. Yan po ang nangyayari ngayon.
nangyayari. So there are several cooperatives na nagsara na who have closed down, their unit surrendered to the financing company or the banks, and the franchise taken over. Kasi kasama prangkisa doon o babalik nyo lang yung unit pero yung prangkisa tago ninyo. Hindi?
Hindi po, kasama po, ayon po dun sa kanilang batas na ginawa, kasama po ang prangkisa pag binatak yung unit mo ng bangko, kasamang prangkisa mo at ang bangko na ang may karapatang magbenta nito kung kanino man nila gusto ibenta. So, the problem is, well, it's the protection of these small operators na nag-co-op o nagkorporasyon na walang suporta. Kaya, I'm very optimistic na ipaglaban na ibatas muna. Kasi, ito lang po yung nakikita kong solusyon para matanggap at maproteksyonan din yung maliliit na operator na hindi sila mawala ng hanap buhay.
Ariel, linawin ko lang bago tayo maghiwalay, Ariel, hatak pati prangkisa. The franchise is a separate document.
Tama po kayo. So, wala naman pong bibili ng mga unit na yan kung hindi kasama ang prangkisa. Then, the DOTR, the LTFRB, the Land Bank, yun po yung magkakausap, no? Yun yung magkakausap. Kaming mga operators, kailangan kami sumunod sa policy. So, pangakuan kami ng maganda, susunod kami, gaya na sinabi nyo, sumusunod naman tayo, pero at the end of the day, hindi ko nakita yung pagmamalasakit o pagmamahal o talagang proteksyon sa mga maliliit na operators at drivers.
Okay, so ano ang appeal mo sa medyo paano mangyayari? Meron ba kayong sabi mo walang kumakausap sa inyo? Pagkatapos sabi ng Manibela, wala na silang pinagtitiwalaan, magi-strike na lang sila. Is there still hope to remedy the situation? Have you been able to talk to some legislators or cabinet members or government officials to save the day, or do we just kiss public transport as far as jeepneys are concerned goodbye?
Kami po I believe na itong Congress at saka Senate na sa pamumuno, una-una sa committee ni Senator Cruz po, nakita ko naman po yung malasakit niya para dito sa transport group, no? Dito naman sa Congress, andyan naman yung ating congressman na committee dyan, si Congressman Acop, na nakikita ko rin. Siguro, ang kailangan lang gawin ng ating Senate President and Speaker ng ating House is maglabas ng isang ano na dapat unahin itong mga ganitong problema. Kasi taong bayan po ang involved dito, no? Lahat. No? Gaya na sinabi ko, meron namang ginagawa ang ating department, ang palasyo, ang Department of Transportation, pero kulang. No? Okay. And the biggest problem, I really ask the government, listen, makinig, hindi kayo ang magagaling lang. No? Sa hanay namin, I'm 36 ako, as a leader, marami pang matargal sa akin, 37 years na pagiging leader sa transportasyon. Galing kami sa babagay na sinabi nyo, sumakay ba sila ng mga jeepney? Sumakay ba sila ng bus? Sumakay ba sila ng tricycle? Siguro meron, wala pang 10% ang lahat ng mga politiko natin. Hindi nila nakikita yung hirap ng taong bayan.
You are so correct, Ariel, and sana naman ay kahit papano kung tayo ay mga lampag ng konti at mga lampag ng maayos, baka sakasakali na may mangyari through the legislators or whoever, because ang akala ng marami ay gawa gulo lang yung mga jeepney operators, puro lang kayo kontra ng kontra, ay lumalabas, walang batas, walang executive order, walang pondo, pagkatapos tira ng tira. Okay, Ariel, thank you very much for your time. Sana ay maliwanagan ang mga nasa pwesto at sumakay naman sila ng tricycle at bus at jeepney ng matikman nila yung kinasanayan na natin. Thank you very much for your time. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Sir Zito. Thank you po.
Okay, let's now go to our closing prayers for the week. It comes from the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 5, and it goes, all your life, no one will be able to hold out against you. In the same way I was with Moses, I'll be with you. I won't give up on you. I won't leave you. That is the promise of the Lord God Almighty to those who will rely on Him, trust Him. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being part of our conversation and welcoming us to your home. Please keep it here on One News.